Linda Kochmar and committee members Leandra Kraft. We also have Council President Susan Honda and also supporting staff. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any public comments today? Jennifer?
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Moving on to committee business. The first one is approval of summary minutes of May 25th, 2021. Before we do that, I would like to say thank you again to committee member Linda Kochma for facilitating the last meeting. I was actually on the airplane at that time, so I couldn't possibly join you, but thank you.
You're welcome. So, Chair, I'll move approval of the minutes, and I would imagine that you would have to abstain since you weren't at the meeting, but I'll move approval of the minutes.
And I'll second.
Great. I did read it. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. The matter passed 3-0. We are moving to item B, Fairway Performing Art and Event Center Ticketing System, RFP. Arthur?
Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me on this evening. We are asking this evening, should the City Council approve staff to request proposals for the Fairway Performing Arts and Event Center ticketing system? A small background on this is when the Performing Arts and Event Center was opened in 2017, a contract was signed with Audience View for 5 years to provide our ticketing system. It is what is connected to the website and that is used on the staff end for all ticketing and events. That contract is getting ready to expire in March of 2022. And with the significant challenges that have been faced with Audience View over the past few years, it is both the city's and Spectra's desire to take this ticketing contract out to RFP. We now have 5 years of historical data for ticketing, as well as experience under our belt with having the Performing Arts and Event Center open. In addition, the current contract is costing us about $56,000 per year. It is built into the budget. It's increased about $5,000 per year over the life of the contract. As far as what a ticketing system would cost with RFP, there is a wide range, but we do anticipate seeing similar costs for an annual ticketing system, even outside of Audience View. If there's any further questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Arthur. Committee members, let's see. Oh, go ahead. I tried to look for it.
I'm trying to find how to raise my hand. I forgot. Hey, Chair, I'm just wondering, there weren't any tickets sold for almost a year. Did we still have to pay the full yearly amount?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We are contractually obligated to pay that amount regardless of if we sell tickets, are closed, etc.
I figured that. So, Autumn, with all of the variants that are coming up and anticipating that there might be another closure, hopefully none, should we write something into the next contract regarding pandemic?
There are significant amendments that would need to be made to the current contract we're under, such as things like that, which is why we want to take this out to RFP. And part of our RFP and part of our contract with whomever is a responsive bidder would be to have some of those details written in.
Thank you.
Leandra?
Thank you, Chair Tran. Autumn, I was looking at, let's see, it's page 2 of the memorandum where the RFP goes out on July. I was just looking at the timeline, and the deadline is August 12th, and we're planning on notifying the firm chosen by August 13th. Do you expect that most people will get their proposals in prior to the day before a firm is chosen?
Yes, we worked directly with Spectra as well to determine if a 30-day timeline would be feasible. And both Spectra and average ticketing RFPs across the board, we anticipate that 30 days should be enough time for the ones that are currently interested in the facility to see the RFP and respond.
Okay, how many proposals do you think we'll be able to get?
We anticipate seeing probably 3 to 4. There are large ticketing systems out there. I mean, you guys are familiar with Ticketmaster and things like that. We won't necessarily see them. We will probably see some of the smaller ticketing systems, such as Audience View or Showware, ones that are more familiar with our type of venue, not large arenas.
And if somebody gets their proposal in on the 12th, you'd have enough time to review it before.
We will be opening ticketing proposals that day and reviewing them based off of price point and details, given the RFP details that we put out for them.
Great, thank you.
Council President Honda.
Thank you. Seeing how as the last year the PAC, wasn't operating as normal, how do the financials look overall for the PAC, and will we need to subsidize it more than we have in the past?
That is a great question that Brian can speak a little bit more in detail to. As far as subsidy, we didn't anticipate a greater subsidy over the last year when we submitted our budget amendments. We were pretty in line with what we had requested in years prior.
Even with the PAC not operating as normal?
Spectra was asked early on in the closures to make a deep dive into the financials and find significant ways to not only have cost savings, but cost cuts, considering that we weren't open, and was able to successfully do that throughout the year. That included significant furloughs and layoffs, as well as reorganization of staff and reorganization of logistics within the facility.
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Autumn was right. We did all of those things, but yes, we had to increase the support though. We have the 3 facilities, the Dumas Bay, the community center, the Performing Arts Center. I think, yes, we did all of those things in order to reduce the cost, but we had to add additional subsidies to all of the 3.
Is that something that the ARPA funds will cover?
Pardon?
Will the increased subsidies, can we recover that through ARPA funds?
Actually, I think both Autumn and Brian and Tim went after some additional grant this year. I don't know whether we've received that. So they are, which we are not entitled to, but because they are running it as a separate entity, they're entitled to that kind of funding. So they are aggressively looking at other avenues to subsidize the operation and the city's funding.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great, Autumn. I want to say that I do agree with Linda in regard to if there's a way we can write some kind of amendment on the contract when we go out for bid to deal with similar situation like COVID, for example. I think that's a good idea to protect the city. So if you guys can do that, that'd be great.
Agreed.
All right. If there's no other discussion, I would take a motion, please.
I move to forward the proposed
thank you,
request
Chair.
I move to forward
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Leandra.
Okay, great. I move to forward the proposed request for proposals for the federally packed ticketing system to the July 6, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
And I'll second that.
Is there any other question or discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The matter passed 3-0. And now we are moving on to item C, Summer Experience and Enrichment for Kids Grant. That will be Cody.
Hi, thanks, Council. I'm asking, should the council approve staff to apply for the Summer Experience and Enrichment for Kids grant? This is a grant through OSPI, through the state, and it is being conducted by Washington Recreation and Parks Association in conjunction with AWC. And there is $12 million for youth funding for this summer. And we have a pretty aggressive timeline that we are looking to do something with that money. We're hoping we get approval to go after the grant. And what we'd like to do is buy a van, a cargo van that we would outfit with recreational sports and arts supplies. And then we would program to go out to the community into different parks and different areas of Federal Way and bring recreation opportunities free to the community. And that's what we're hoping to do with the money. It is a reimbursement opportunity, so we would have to pay out of operating and then get reimbursed for what we are asking for.
Great, thank you. I see Council President have his hands up. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. So this would be a summer program from what I read. How would the van be used for the rest of the year? And what parks would you anticipate going to?
Yeah, that's a great question. We haven't gotten that far on what the van would be used for in the off season. We do have a cargo van that we use for special events. That is a 2003 that is no longer in reserves, collecting reserves on it, and probably is at the end of its life cycle. So in the off season, we would probably use it for events and transporting equipment to events. And then as far as parks go, we haven't identified exact locations. Sacagawea, Sahali, Lakota obviously are easy geographically, and Steel Lake. And then we would also entertain maybe going to apartment complexes that have grass or playgrounds or areas that we identify as in need.
So the school district has a program that they run in the summertime with their 3 or 4 buses that they're green. I don't know what they call it. How would this work with that so that you're, it would be nice to cover the whole city between the school district and this program so that every neighborhood could have the ability to get some enrichment?
Yeah, and one of the conversations we've had, and we haven't gone too in depth. This was just released last week to us, and so we just found out about this. So there's definitely some more legwork to do on it. But I agree, teaming up with a free lunch program where it's going to draw kids in already is a great way to do that. And I have some good connections at the school district and can find out what their map is as well.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Committee member Linda Kochma, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Tran. Just wondering, Cody, will you be advertising have you figured out how you're going to advertise where the van will be? I mean, how would you post it? Let me know where it will be during the summer.
Yeah, our hope would be that we would then be able to post a sign at the park itself on what our scheduled day is, but then also social media and hopefully working with the school district and their peach jar. But the idea would be to have it at a consistent location each week from X amount of time, and then we'd show up there every week so then we could be consistent. The challenge with this grant is that the funding will be awarded in mid-July, and we're going to have to try to push out in August, and it only gives us 1 month really to program for this summer. But the idea would be then we'd have this program moving forward for future years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. I also want to recognize Councilmember Lydia Safford Barson just joined us, and she also has a question. Go ahead, Lydia.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Hi, Cody. My question is, you did say with a possibility to get reimbursed, and I just wanted to dig deeper on that. Does it mean we will get reimbursed, and what is it based on? Is it based on service delivery or just the fact that we have the program?
Yeah, my understanding is it's based on the program itself. So if we were to receive the grant, then we would be refunded for the dollars that we were able to spend on it, and we wouldn't spend the dollars until we were assured that we were a grant recipient.
So once we launch the program, we will get the reimbursement.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Tran.
You're welcome. Cody, I do have a questions. Do we have kind of a dollar figure or a dollar amount attached to this? Just a rough idea.
I've estimated it at $75,000, and that would get us a van, and then we would get it wrapped with our logo and what the van is, as far as it's a kids, mobile recreation program, staffing costs. I actually, as I've drilled down the numbers, we kind of rushed this to get this on, and I think it's actually going to be less than that. I'm thinking more in the $55,000 range to get the van and to get it staffed for the summer, get the equipment and get the van ready to store that equipment in there as well. So I put $75,000. I shot for the moon, but I'm in realistic numbers. I think it's more around the $55,000. The grant application isn't actually out yet. And so we were just kind of ballparking some figures.
Okay, thank you. Council President Honda.
Thank you. Cody, who would drive the van? Are we talking about teenage staff members running the program? And who would drive the van, and would they need an additional license to drive the van?
The van itself would be just a passenger or a cargo van, so there would be no CDL requirement for the vehicle itself. We would require 18 and over to drive the vehicle, and they would go through the van training that we all go through HR to be able to do that. I'm thinking they're more of a college age kid that's more independent and ready to jump into activities and be out there with the community, but staffing would be a part-time. In my idea, there's 2 part-time staff in the van that would help administer the games, crafts, activities, and that.
Okay, thanks.
Great discussion. All right. If there's no more questions, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Chair Tran. Whoop. I'm sorry. Leandra, do you want to go ahead? I hit the wrong thing in my... It all went crazy on me.
Yeah, no problem. I move to forward the proposed request to apply for the Summer Experience and Enrichment for Kids grant to the July 6, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
Thank you. I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The matter passed 3-0. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving on to item D, authorization to enter into interlocal agreement with King County for use of Renton Decant facility. And that would be Teresa.
Good evening, council members. I'm Teresa Thurlow with the Surface Water Management Division. I don't normally come to FedRAC, so it's a little different for me. We, this year, purchased a Vactor, which is behind me. And this Vactor basically sucks up sediment and water out of our catch basins and vaults and other things. And we have to discharge that in special facilities. And the one that we hope to be using is the King County Regional Facility. It's a little less expensive than the commercial facilities, and they require an interlocal agreement for us to be able to Decant is what they call it, our waste there. So we are asking, should council authorize an interlocal agreement with King County for use of this regional decant facility? We estimate that this year's billing will be about $15,000, and we did include waste disposal in this year's billing. So our impact to the budget, there would not be an impact. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Teresa. Committee members, any questions? Council members, no questions? Leandra, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment and say thank you, Teresa, for putting the picture up of what this is, because when I was reading it, I did not have any context, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Leandra, thank you for saying that, because I was gonna ask her the same thing. Great. All right. If there's no questions, I would take.
Hey,
Linda, go ahead.
Chair Tran, I'll make a motion, but I just want to let you know that the vac truck is very similar to the one that Lake Haven uses, and a vac truck is as big as a house, if not bigger.
Yeah.
And so you will know when you see that going down the street what it is. But it's interesting. And you know what? What else, Teresa? I think that some of the people who do the septic tank removal or septic tank, that they may dispose of it down our storm drains. I don't know if that's some of the stuff that you're going to be.
We do occasionally have illicit discharges into the storm drains, and yes, you are correct. This this is how we get it back out, unless it's concrete, and then that's a whole different story.
Lake Haven had to get some interlocking manhole covers to keep people from stealing them and turning them in for scrap. And so now they can't get into our manhole covers, so they go into the storm drains. At least that's the way it was a few years ago.
We also use locking. I was saying we also use locking.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just, as a side note, I was risk manager, and I was reading some information at one point for a claim where a neighbor was walking backwards in the street, in a neighborhood street. Oh yeah. And the manhole cover had been stolen, and he disappeared down the manhole, and it was a sewer, and that was pretty. He broke both his legs, but so the moral to the story is watch where you're walking. But anyway, thank you, Teresa. I have more stories too, but that was a little bit cleaner. So. Chair Tran, I move to forward option 1 to the July 6, 2021 City Council consent agenda for approval.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I gotta stop laughing. All right. So we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any other questions or discussion on this subject? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The matter passed 3-0. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
All right. So moving along, we are at item E, AP voucher from May 16 through June 15, 2021, and payroll voucher from the 1st of May until May 31st, 2021. And Jace will be the one to present.
Good evening, Council President Honda, Council Chair Tran, Council Committee members, and public. For you are the AP vouchers and payroll vouchers that Council Member Tran just commented on in the amount of $5,287,414.18, and payroll vouchers in the amount of $3,718,245.32. And I believe we answered Council President Honda's questions that she sent earlier, and we'd be happy to answer any others that you may have.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Council President, for asking those questions, and thank you for the quick response from finance staff. No questions? We just let Chase go that easy?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So Chair, I move to forward the vouchers to the July 6, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any questions at all? If not, please say aye if you favor the motion.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 3-0. And now we're moving on to last item, item F, monthly financial report for May 2021.
Well, since Chase is in such a good role, I will let him continue. So
I'm going to. Looks like the host disabled share screening. Would you like me to share the report on the screen, or just to talk through some of the pages?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Okay. It looks like I don't have the screen sharing option right now. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Great. We see it.
Great. So you can see this report?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I will start on the report. Good evening. Before you use the May 2021 monthly financial report. Some of the highlights in this report are the sales tax is 0.4 million or 7.8% above 2021 year-to-date budget, and 0.5 million or 10.3% above 2020 year-to-date collections. So sales tax is looking good. Retail is still looking favorable, as our finance director has noted in past reports.
Chase, we are only able to see the first page.
Thank you.
Oh, it wasn't down on here. I apologize. So sales tax continues to look good. And as our finance director has reported previously, we do have some retail businesses that provide construction materials.
Sorry, Chase.
Yeah.
Hey, Chase.
I still only see the city council agenda.
We're not able to see that.
Huh. Interesting.
Are you able, when it says share screen, do you have multiple windows open?
Is that show?
Okay, now it is.
I see it
Okay,
now.
there you go.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
Great.
Yeah. So sales tax is still looking good. And as our finance director has mentioned, we have some businesses such as that provide construction materials, the Costco's, the Home Depot's, the Lowe's, the different things that the types of businesses that we have in our city have continued to do well. And so our sales tax is looking good. Our community development permits and fees are 0.3 million or 25.2% above 2021 year-to-date budget, and 0.5 million or 56.1% above 2020 year-to-date collections. On page 89, I referenced just that Redondo Heights Senior Living Facility is one large permit that accounts for that increase. So community development permits and fees are still looking pretty good as well. Utility tax is also doing well. And is 0.56 million or 10.3% above 2020 year-to-date budget, and 1.78 million or 42.6% above 2020 year-to-date collections. A large portion of that increase is due to the new water sewer tax, as well as the additional 10% solid waste utility tax that we have on utility tax services. Revenues that are performing below year-to-date budget that are significant include the parks and recreation fees, and they're below 2021 year-to-date budget by 290,000 or 66.5%. But they're starting to increase above 2020 year-to-date collections. And this is primarily due to the closures due to COVID-19, and activities are slowly reopening. And so you're going to start to see that our revenues are going to increase over the 2020 revenues in some of the categories, but still will be below the year-to-date budget. And this is because COVID closed things down in March, and we're now in the May report. And so as we're now open as a city, we're starting to see some of the revenues start to increase again. Emissions tax is below 2021 year-to-date budget by 100,000 or 78.3%, and 34,000 or 54.7% below 2020 year-to-date actuals. And this primarily has to do with COVID-19 pandemic, with many of our activities closed, the AMC theater closed, as well as other activities in the city. The other theaters haven't been open until recently.
So I think just so that the council fully understand, depending on the way the federal government asks us to calculate the lost revenue, this actually may be a double-edged sword, in the sense that we're doing very well on sales tax, CD, utility tax, and business. So the federal government may say, okay, your total loss, so if they are looking at the total loss, I'll have to net all of those gain with the loss in the core, the loss in the admission, and we may not be able to recover the estimated 13 million that I presented, at the last council meeting. So it's one of those double-edged sword. We're waiting for them to give us a specific answer that do we have to net, or can we just look at specific laws? If they allow us to do specific laws, we know we're losing money regarding the admission tax. We know we're losing money regarding the red light. We know we're losing money regarding the court. We know we're losing money regarding the parks and recreation. If they will allow us to just claim those, that would be good. But if they ask us to net, I think we will not be able to claim as much as 13 million. So,
Ade, I have a question if it's okay to ask.
absolutely.
So, we adjusted the budget when COVID hit. So
Yes.
if we hadn't adjusted the budget, we would show much more impacts, right? And we would have
Actually, no.
no.
Because what they're asking us to do is to compare our 2020 revenue to what we actually did in 2019. So we're not compare budget to actual, we're compare actual to actual. So regardless of the budget amendment, it would not really have any impact.
Okay.
So, and I think that is why, especially the utility tax on water and sewer, because in 2019 we didn't have that. All of a sudden in 2020 we have 18, 19, and 20. So that is part of what will affect how much we're able to claim. If if they allow us to do the budget, like you just mentioned, I will be happy, because we budgeted for the water and sewer in 2020. So there won't be much loss, there won't be much gain. But they are comparing actual of 2019 to actual of 2020.
So, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Ade. So, Ade, I'm still fuzzy on that 13 million. So we're going to ask for 13 million from the ARPA funds, and I'm trying to understand. I know that's going to cover lost money revenue to cover salary and so on. But could you explain that a little further?
Okay, actually, just to be very, very clear, that is an estimate that if they allow us just to select the lost revenue in certain areas, it will be up to 13 million. But if they say, no, hold on, it has to be as a whole, we will not be able to claim that 13 million. We will have to say, okay, the total revenue in 2019 was 72 million. The revenue in 2020, because of COVID, instead of 72 million, is 57. Then I'll be able to claim 13 million. But the problem is some revenue went up and some revenue went down. And they would not allow me to cherry pick because our total revenue as a city was now 70 million and 53 because of the water and sewer that we collected in 2020. Our revenue was higher in utility tax, and of course, the admission tax was way, way, way low. If they allow me to just say, okay, I want to claim the loss in admission tax, that would be good. I want to claim the loss in the sales tax, that would be good. But they're going to take the entire city as a whole.
Yeah, I'm now understanding that today, but what I'm trying to understand is why we kept being told that everything was okay, that we were just better than most other cities, and certainly we weren't told that we were down 13 million.
Like in admission tax, we were. In total, we were not down. That is the problem. That is good and bad. In total, and that is why we were not telling you we're having trouble because, again, water and sewer, utility tax for 3 years came in 1 year. The addition to the solid waste came in September. That is 10% more. That did, we were doing really well. Then, of course, when we got the CARE Act, we were able to use some of the CARE Act to pay for some expenses. So that is part of why we were not really suffering, even though some specific revenue were down. Red light, because nobody was driving. That was totally down, even though utility tax went through the roof. Admission tax, because like Performing Arts Center, the movie theater that were closed, were totally down. But again, because people were going to Costco, they were going to, sales tax was up. So it was, some were up,
okay, so
some were down.
Thank you. Yeah, I get that. I understand that, and I can guesstimate what the Lake Haven was and what the waste management was. I'm wondering how much did we get from the CARES Act?
Remember, it's not really it's what we use it for. For starters, for CARE Act, we got almost about 6 million or so that we used to pay for some staff, that we used to pay for some other expenses. Because I was involved in managing that program, Tim Johnson was involved. A portion of my salary was charged to that. So those are some of the things that we did that lessen the impact of COVID on the city as a whole. If we didn't have COVID, if we didn't have CARE grant, the city would pay my salary totally. But because we have the grant and I was spending a lot of time on that, a portion of my salary was paid out of there. We have some staff that maybe we probably will have laid off, especially in the mayor's office, that we use to send out to process the grant applications that we pay for. We have some parks employees that we use the grant money to pay for. So, which, yes,
okay.
Yeah,
thank you. That pretty much clears it up for me. Thank you.
Ade, I do have a suggestion. So, utility tax. So we are doing well in that area. So what if I'm just asking this question? What if, let's say, we decided to give back to people as a form of rebate, maybe 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever that is, and then we use the not the CARE Act, but the APA fund to replace that?
No.
Is that even possible?
No, it is not possible because that is supplanting. No, that is totally not possible. What they said we can use the grant for is comparison of actual revenue to one another. What we did in 2019 and what we did in 2020. That is, and again in 2021, they will compare how our revenues. Remember, the new grant will go all the way through 2024. So we're able to use this same money to say, okay, in 2024, we're losing money in this area compared to what we did in 2019. 2019 is the yardstick that they're using to measure 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. So it's total revenue that we did in 2019 that they're going to use. So it's not going to be spending, it's going to be revenue. Remember, it is revenue loss. Not budget loss, not spending, it is revenue loss. So they're not going to consider spending, it's going to be strictly revenue.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, we are going back to Chase. Oh, sorry.
I have another question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Ade, you were on the email that Mr. Purton sent out this afternoon.
Yes.
Can you explain, or we can wait till we get to that part of the budget of the report, but could you explain a little bit more about what he's saying in here?
I think what he's saying is, when we proposed the additional 10%, we said we will raise about $1 million through that 10%. And he's saying now, because since we've put in that 10%, based on his calculation, we're going to raise more than $1 million. So since you raise the tax thinking you make 1 million and you are making more than 1 million, you should decrease the rate. That is what I think Mr. Pudding was saying. But my caution is, maybe you will do that, maybe you will not. Let's get through a year first. So if we get through, and remember the good news about this fund, it's not money for the general fund, and that is part of why with the new budget amendment, we're dedicating a separate fund for it. So it's not money that, I need money in general fund, I can go grab. That 10% is going entirely into a separate fund. So at some point, if the council look at it and say, well, if all the road that we're going to be fixing per year is 1 million, and we're collecting $1.5 million, we want to reduce it, yes. At that time, you can take a look at it. But remember, this money is dedicated to fix the arterial streets. So I would suggest we get through a year or two, then you can make that determination. If what you are collecting is more than what you need, then you can do that. Until that time, just making the change at the middle of the year, when you've not even seen the entire year, I think will be a little bit premature.
From reports from LUTC and from EJ and other people in his department, our overlay program is in dire need of more money, not less, to keep our roads to what they were, because they have slipped so far down down the line. Yes. So it would not be a really wise decision to change this, even if we did bring in more money than we expected, I would think, unless we found another source of funding for overlay projects?
As of now, going through pandemic, I think from my perspective, it would be a bad move on this part of the city to change this. I think 2 years from now, if you realize you fix all your roads and you have more money than you need, But I think you are absolutely right, Council President. I think our back roads, that is the essence of levying this tax. Our back roads are in need of serious fixing. And remember, until you accumulate this money, somebody like EJ will not be able to say, okay, I want to spend 10 million or whatever. You want him to accumulate the money before he decides to spend it. You are not going to authorize him to spend it thinking that you are going to get the revenue. Because if you authorize him to spend it and something like COVID or whatever happens again and the revenue is not coming in, then you are in the hole. So you are supposed to be able to accumulate the money before you spend it. So I totally agree. I think for now, we need to just, our roads are really in bad need. I think we should wait a while before we try to even look at if we want to change the rate, whatever, not just do that in the middle of the year. No.
All right. Thanks for talking to me about that.
Thank you. Before we go back to Chase, I do want to recognize on the line council members Great Baruso. My apologies for not recognize you earlier, council member.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I've been on the phone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chase, you have the floor.
Yeah, so general and street fund expenditures, although revenues are down in some of the areas, general and street fund expenditures are also down from year-to-date budget by 0.8 million or 4.4%. And due to all the closures and vacancies of positions, the city's been able to save money in the various departments. And so although some of the revenue's down, the spending is also down. So that is helping the general fund. I thought, there we go. This is the summary of the designated funds. And so as we've talked about in some of the prior meetings, we moved the jail fund from the general fund into its own individual fund. And the jail fund is under the year-to-date budget by 0.8 million or 58.3%. And it's primarily due to having lower average daily population in our jails. The average daily population was 23.8 for April, and we're typically about a month behind in that reporting because we have to wait for all of the expenses to come through for that to be determined. And we've been talking quite a bit about the utility tax over the last few minutes. On this section of the report, we do talk about some of the major increases and decreases to the utility tax. So as you can see, the water sewer, we've received 629,000 year to date, with no amount received yet in 2020 comparatively, because we hadn't started to receive that funding yet. And then the solid waste has increased by 844,000 or 216.1%. And I'll show you that later because we split out the 10% in a table in the utility tax. And we'll look at that table here in a minute. The Federal Way Community Center 2021 year-to-date revenues of 305,000 is below the 2021 year-to-date budget by 517,000 and below 2020 year-to-date actual by about 70,000. The expenditures are also below within that fund, and the ending fund balance of 1.4 million is below the required reserve fund balance policy of 1.5 million. And that's due to the facility just reopening as of January 18th with limited activities. So we'll have to just monitor that closely to make sure that we stay within the reserve policy set by council. The real estate excise tax continues to do well, and it is 1.6 million and is above 2020 year-to-date actual by 0.45 million or 40.3% above 2021 year-to-date budget by 0.37 million or 30.7%. One of the large commercial sales this month was Blue Ridge Apartments for $4.67 million. And so the apartments continue to sell, and the funding for the REIT continues to come in. This is the sales tax comparisons that we talked about earlier, and we just identify it by major categories. And like I mentioned, the retail trade, the retail category continues to do well. This is where we report our comparison on our utility tax totals. And so on this page, we split out the solid waste. So we are tracking how much we are receiving of the 10%. So we've received $695,677. And as our finance director mentioned, that is specifically restricted for arterial streets. And so that is the amount that we've received for the solid waste. This is the amount that's been received for the water sewer. And those are the two primary reasons for the increase, although our electric and gas is still doing well as well. The hotel motel lodging tax revenues, as our finance director has mentioned in the past, that's been a major factor of our decrease in revenue. But we are starting to see it increase. In May, we saw a $7,000 increase compared to the prior year and a $1,600 increase compared to year-to-date budget. So it looks like that is starting to turn around, which is good compared to the prior year. Still below what it was back before the pandemic, but it's starting to increase slightly. This is the jail services table where we track the expenses. And as I mentioned, the spending is down compared to year-to-date budget, but we've spent $574,000 year-to-date on jail services.
Just for the record, Councilmember Coachman, comments that you made several months ago, and I hope the council will keep an eye on your comment, because we dedicated a fund, a separate fund for this jail, to make sure that our ADP is extremely good now. But like you pointed out a few months ago, which I totally agree, it's not always going to be this good. So we need to make sure that in this fund, we're building up enough reserve to take care of hike when that will come. So even though we budgeted for 70 ADP, what we're currently paying for now is extremely low. So we want to make sure we're keeping that money in that fund for the day that we will be doing 120 ADP, if we choose to, without having to find additional money someplace else. So what is happening in the jail fund now is we're spending less, and hopefully the city and the council will keep that excess in that fund without taking it out to do some other things. So.
And here
I agree with you.
Yeah, the next page here is the traffic safety red light photo table. As you can see, the revenue, as our finance director mentioned, the revenue has decreased significantly. Before the pandemic here in January, 257,000, 258,000, and now down into the hundreds. And so the revenue is decreasing for traffic safety, but it is starting to come back up a little bit as things are reopening and more people are running red lights. I had touched on the Federal Way Community Center that we're below the required reserve fund balance currently, but we'll monitor that closely to make sure that we try to stay within the reserve policy. Dumas Bay Center is still closed as of the end of May, and is also slightly below the reserve fund balance policy. They are not bringing in revenue, but they're still having to maintain basic operations for the facility. The self-insurance fund continues though to do well. We have an ending fund balance of $3.8 million. we try to keep a reserve within there for high premiums in the future. And there's a recommendation of a premium increase in upcoming years, and so we will need that reserve to stay within that fund. Similar to how Ade commented on the jail fund, it's a separate fund where we track the revenue and the expenditures and make sure that we have a good fund balance for future expenses that may come up. It's good to have a good reserve within those funds in case of large expenditures, and this is a restricted fund for that purpose. Lastly, this is the table that shows each of the individual funds, fund balances, and the required reserve fund balance policies. So the general and street fund continues to do well. We are early in the year where we've just received our large portion of property tax, and so typically the fund balance shows a bit higher within the first months, but it's also due to lower spending and moderate expenditures or moderate revenues. Our revenues aren't as below due to sales tax being good and some of the other items that I commented about above. And so our general and street fund ending fund balance is $11,361,585. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chase. Can you take down your share screen,
Yes.
please? Thank you. Committee members, Linda Kochma, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair Tran. So Chase, and Ade, I'm trying to, I don't have a real lengthy current background with the city to know how many apartment buildings sell on a yearly basis. So I'm wondering, do we have an increase in apartment buildings being sold?
Over the past few years, we've had quite a few apartment buildings sell. I don't have that exact number, but we could.
I'm wondering, I don't know if we could answer this, but I'm wondering, it's either because property values are going up, or it's because rents are, what do you say, being held so that people aren't paying rent in some cases. I forgot what they're calling it now under the COVID restrictions. So I'm wondering if that's the reason some of the apartment buildings are being sold.
I think in the Western Washington state, I think the real estate market, despite the COVID, is still hot. To the extent that you actually have companies buying residential area for investment. They are buying not just apartment, they are buying single family residential just for investment. It used to be people that wants to live in there buying the houses. So it's because they find this area very, very hot. You have, in talking to some of the local real estate, you have outside money also coming into Western Washington. So all of these purchases are not necessarily businesses that are currently located here that are buying the property. You have money coming from outside the state to invest here. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of investors consider Seattle area in terms of real estate as being very, very hot. So both commercial and apartment complex are going like hotcakes. So it's similar to what happened in late early 90s when Japanese money, Chinese money was flowing into the country, but they are coming. Some are leaving California, coming to Washington State. So it is not necessarily because of COVID money, it's because also for the investors, the best time to invest is during the recession, because you assume people are selling because they cannot afford. So people that have money are mopping up,
Mhm.
and that is what is happening.
So on our end, because of the implicit price deflator, we won't really see that much of an increase in our property tax
In
revenue.
terms of property tax revenue, uh, when one value goes up for the city, it may not necessarily increase our revenue, but there may be an impact on individual property tax. The example is, say, for example, if the city is supposed to get $100 and my property, I'm paying $10 now because it's valued at 100, and another one 100, and all of that. If all of a sudden my property that is valued at 100 is now worth 200, the law says the city can only still collect 100. So what that means is the property that is now worth 200 will pay more, and we will have to reduce other people's property tax. But the city as a whole cannot make any more. The only time that the city will make more money is when you have new property coming, new development coming.
Mm-hmm.
So
so a day. That's okay. I get that. So for new property, because of the implicit price deflator, and the only way you can go up in your property tax revenue is with new property. So
yes.
I'm wondering if that wouldn't be an impetus for us to start looking at the area east of the freeway. We've always said it wasn't worth if we're going to expand and the potential annexation area, there's 20,000 residents on the east side. And that's the area to expand to if we could extend sewers, because sewers will control growth. I'm just wondering if it wouldn't there be a time in the near future where we wouldn't want to talk to the residents on the east side about whether they want to be annexed to the city, or the only other way we can go, because we don't have a lot of residential space left in the city of Federal Way boundary, would be to go up in the air.
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering.
Thank you, Councilmember Koshman. Thinking ahead, and I think that is what will make the city of Federal Way, perform better in the future. We need to start looking ahead. Yes, I think expanding lengthwise,
they keep saying,
and height-wise. That's the only way to go.
Yeah, they keep saying we're supposed to. They keep saying we're supposed to accept so many new residents by 2040 or 2060 or 2050. Maybe this shouldn't be something that should be on our agenda for the retreat in January. I know you won't be here. You'll be having a wonderful time in your new, but maybe Chase or someone could remember to put it on our or Susan put it on our retreat agenda.
Yeah. I think just to add a few more points, I think the train coming to Federal Way is a good thing, but there will be some cost to it, in the sense that as that start to function really well, at some point the city of Federal Way may have to figure out how to move people from inner area to the train station. So if you don't expand your base, you will continue to tax the limited number of people. So I think, yes, that is not going to happen now. It's not going to happen next year, but it's something that will happen down the road. Just like the council did with utility tax. I think let's start thinking about down the road and start laying the foundation for it. And when you do the utility tax, none of us thought about COVID-19, but that is what saved us for COVID-19. So we need to start thinking about 5 years, 10 years down the road. I totally agree with you, Councilmember Koshman. Okay. Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Also, President Honda.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. A day, if we had not gotten the money from Lake Haven and the CARES money, what do you think? How do you think we would be financially today?
No, for starters, you will have laid a lot of people off.
Mhm.
No, but no if.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
did not do that, we will be hurting so bad that there will have been massive layoff. We got 3 years worth of utility tax in 1 year. I mean, at times you wish to be lucky than to be smart. I think this is one time that, yes, I appreciate the council that made the decision in 2018, but none of us thought about, I mean, we wanted to use the money for COLA or for salary adjustment. But yes, if we didn't have it, we would have had some serious massive layoff. No,
So
but no if.
if we had only gotten 1 year worth of Lake Haven money, where would we be?
If it's instead of 3 years, if we had gotten one, you would still feel the pain a little bit. It would not be as massive. But yes, because we are talking about just a little bit over 1 million. And as of now, all your reserves are still intact. Some of the other cities, despite the fact that they are laying off, they are depleting their reserves. Your reserves are still intact. That is a good thing. And guess what? You still have few bucks to be able to do some structural adjustments. We did not have any permanent layoff. What I mean by permanent layoff, yes, we did a little bit with Dumas Bay Community Center and Performing Arts Center, because the facility was closed. But the rest of all of the other employees remain intact. Yes, we didn't do the salary adjustment. We still give COLA. You have some cities that they will tell you they are doing well, but actually they decrease the employees' pay in addition to laying off. So I think if we had gotten 1 year, we would have felt the pinch a little bit, but we still, probably do better than if we didn't get anything at all.
So Ade, if I was listening to this report and I'm a staff member in the City of Federal Way, and I know that I'm making less than someone in Auburn is making, would I not wonder why I'm still making less? If the city's doing so well.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Part of the reason why an employee will be making less is before my counterpart was making 10, I was making 5. And you say, well, I'm doing you a favor, I'm giving you $1 COLA. And you're looking, well, you're making more money than you made last year. Yes. But of course, I'm still making less than my counterpart. Where we're starting from was originally low. The City of Federal Way has been behind for so long. That was the essence of the salary study. And actually, thank you for bringing that up. And I think we're having serious trouble in filling certain positions, especially in our law department, because they realize, I can go work for Sound Transit, I can go work for Auburn. And I think as maybe the city attorney have shared with you in the past, he's probably still willing to share with you, we've lost few employees in the last few years, and we're having a hard time rehiring because they are making more money where they are now. So why would they want to come to Federal Way and make less?
It's actually the prosecutors. So I've got one prosecutor position has been open for a month, and we made an offer and it was refused, and we haven't had any new applicants. We're advertising it very hard. And then the recent addition of one more prosecutor for the cameras, the body cameras, puts us down 2. So we run a tight ship and don't really have control over our caseload. It's driven by court schedule and how many tickets are written. So we're struggling. So that's a good example of we're going to have to bump that job up to market rate, kind of ad hoc, to fill the job. And that's been a systemic in the city. Positions get bumped up to fill the job instead of bumping it up before people leave.
And Council President, if you remember a few years ago, actually, I made the comparison that on High 5 corridor, and that is the problem that we have. Our job market on High 5 corridor starts from Olympia all the way to Seattle. That means somebody can live in Olympia and work in Federal Way. They can live in Olympia and work in Seattle. Unlike if you are in Eastern Washington. If you want to take another job in Eastern Washington, you are moving. You don't have to move on I-5 corridor. And that is what makes us to be. We have to try to be very competitive. I travel from Port Orchard. On our staff here, I know people that live in Seattle, people that live in Olympia. That is the job market. Our job market is not just Federal Way. It's that entire scope. And we will have to compete with all of the businesses, all of the cities on that span. And that is the trouble that we're having.
So how do we get to where we need to be? I mean, do we have the if we had to take money out of reserves to get to where we need to be, what would happen to us?
The danger in using reserve. Remember, reserve is one-time money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to wipe that out, you've raised the bar. Then the following year, when you're supposed to pay that amount, you have to take some more. The following year, you have to take some more. So I think when things level off, the city will be in a good position with the utility tax that you've levied, with both on water and sewer, even though it may look a little bit bleak now because of COVID, but we're not going to be here for a long time. So when we come out, and that is also part of why, responding to Mr. Puddin's email, you don't want to look at one rate now and say, well, you want to start giving discount, you want to reduce the rate because we're not out of the wood yet. So in a year or two, when things level off, or as gradually, like what City Attorney just mentioned, some of the critical positions, we need to start bringing them up to par to retain it's so sad that we're having to let people go and hire new people at a higher rate, which we can easily keep good people and pay the amount that we will pay the brand new person. So we have the salary study now. I hope we can gradually, start to bring some of those critical positions to what the salary study says. We're now, I think we're sitting well based on where we are now. And when the economy rebounds, then you're going to have that revenue to support the new salary.
Okay, thank you.
I think we need a motion if there's no more questions.
Yes.
Good. Chair Tran?
Yes, go ahead.
So I move to forward the May 20th, 2021 monthly financial report to the July 6th, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
And I second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 The matter passed 3-0. And that is the conclusion of our meeting. Our next meeting, it is going to be July 27, 2021. And I'm hopeful that we will be meeting in person, but that's subject to change. All right.
That meeting, our new finance director will be with us. I think that will be his first meeting, and so that will be really, really great.
You'll still be here, right, Ade?
Yes, I'll still be here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I will still have one more chance to embarrass you the last time, then, right? Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Take care.
Hey, Chair Tran, it looks like Lydia. Lydia, do you have a question? No?
I was just saying bye and thank you. That's
all
all.
right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good
night.
meeting.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
Night now.
Good night.